All right. Let's get it going right here, right now. This is TMI. A little too much information. If you didn't know by now, my name is Chad, and every single week on TMI, I'm joined here by the Vampire Queen, the one and only Shelly Martinez. And I'll tell you something, reviewing the last couple TMI intros, I'm watching you do your like seductive, sultry moves and stuff, and I'm like, if I do it, it's probably gonna look a little weird. So I'm gonna let you do your thing, and I'm gonna like uncomfortably like move myself around a little bit. But I mean, you know, it's tough to compete with you as you're doing your like attention-getting moves. But with that being said, welcome to episode number 5.
Here's the thing. If you got some sexy seductive moves, you should do them, Chad. I embrace you being seductive and sexy here on TMI because it's kind of what TMI is all about.
Oh, it's what it's all about for sure. But I just, you know, we'll get in the zone. We'll get there.
Yeah,
that music does bring it out of you, though, I have to say.
I know. It's deep, dude. We talked about it. What, episode 2 was it? Maybe?
Episode 1.
Or was it 1? It was episode 1.
Yes. So what's happening in your look? We're doing it up tonight. I got my cup here. I got my my little coffee cup going on.
Well, if you guys have noticed, whenever I do a podcast or I'm over here with TMI, I always use this as my water cup. And today I do have lemon water because my throat hurts and I'm hoping I'm not getting sick, man.
I hope so too, but that's good that we're doing this now and not later, so we don't have to worry about recording times. But I'm doubling up. I do have coffee. I have peppermint mocha inside of my coffee, but then I also do the giant thing of water because I do tend to, if I talk for a while, get a little dry. So I like to take a little swig every so often. But
hydration is key.
Yes, it is. But you started last week's show with a shot, so
I did
lemon water tonight.
I did. It was a rough time, but today, even though I'm like fighting the sickness, I'm like telling my body, you're not sick, you're not sick, you're not sick. So we'll see what happens because I have a lot to do, man. I have this. I have a vampire radio to record. I have content to get for my secret society. And then tomorrow I have an interview to do for vampire radio and then a whole bunch of other things. And then on Sunday, I am going to be going down to Ring the Bell DS's house. If you know out there, and do a review about the Royal Rumble, the women's match. So, and then tomorrow I have to watch the match. So there's that too. So there's a lot to do. So I have no business being sick, dude. I'm telling you that. But I have a juicer and I swear by nature's cure, which is fruits and vegetables. And I just been juicing it up in hopes that I'm going to fight this and I'm not going to get sick.
Hey, your lips to the big man's ears. The Royal Rumble this weekend in Riyadh. We're seeing all the posts from the WWE superstars. They love it in Saudi Arabia. I mean, they never want to leave. They're just posting stuff from the theme parks and all the attractions, and it's the greatest time ever. It's the greatest thing in the world. So if you're a WWE superstar and you're in the Royal Rumble or at the Royal Rumble or booked to be in Saudi Arabia, you're having the best week ever. So it's fascinating to see.
Who knew? I didn't. Like, not to sound ignorant, but I was ignorant to it, but here we are.
A few years ago, it was they didn't want the women over there. Wrestlers were like petitioning not to go. And now it's completely different. Now they've seen the light. But see, it's also weird too. It was the Vince McMahon era versus the Triple H era. I don't know, was it how Vince pitched it to them about how to go over versus how Triple H pitches it? I mean, what's the difference? Is the money greener now than it was a few years back? I mean, again, like I remember there was such talk of who's not going versus who's going, and now everybody goes. It's a party. It's like, just jump on and we're going over. And this is with a giant snowstorm in the Northeast this last week. It's crazy.
You bring up a good point because I guess I kind of just always looked at it as that, like, oh, the women have to be covered up and it's very like, this and that. It's so, I don't know. Maybe we timeline shifted and we're all just experiencing it on a different timeline now.
I saw one post on X that I wish I saved it so I could bring it up, but I love to like expose the no shit Sherlock of the new era fans that don't know jack shit about the wrestling business. But it was like um, women responsible for their gear that they need for the Royal Rumble. So obviously they need to be fully covered, from neck to their boots. But they're responsible for the gear. And I wanted to throw out well, no shit, Sherlock, because who do they think covers their gear? You think WWE gets your gear made? Like, what is that? Unless they're making a costume, you think that that's who's making your gear? I mean, tell us, how did you get and this is spoiler alert, I kind of know from a post you made earlier in the week, but what would you do to get your costume or your gear put together for a show?
I would go to Hot Topic, or I'd go to Lake Avenue, or when I would be able to come to California, I would go to Hollywood Boulevard and stock up at the stripper stores, the Hustler store. I remember one time, it was when I was first with ECW, and Barbie, Kelly and I don't even know what city we were or what state we were. I just remember that we had a little bit of downtime and we went to the Hustler store and we bought a bunch of cute little like skirts and like cute little tops. So like that's just what I did. I never had like specific gear made. Like my infamous aerial dress, that's from Lake Avenue, which is the like sexy costumes for women. And it's not even a vampire outfit. It was like called Sexy Senorita or something like that. And I just wore it vampire like. So yeah, dude, that's what I did. And then there's people who like in my time, um, the wardrobe people there, they would make it for the wrestlers. But I mean, hello, the wrestlers are paying for it. It's not like they're like, Vince is paying for it. So yeah, you're right. Like, duh. We've been supplying our own stuff for a long time. It's hard for women because harder because we don't just have gear, we have our hair to tend to, our makeup and all that. We all I guess the tan is all universal, but, like, hair, makeup, some girls do nails, like, it's really hard being a girl, okay?
I mean, listen, if anybody can sympathize right now, it's me. I get the Chadster face, so
That's the face
I
that
sympathize. But I saw your post about your Cobra Kai t-shirt.
Yes.
And you talked about how many times you were able to wear a licensed t-shirt onto TV without it getting called. And you weren't the only one. There were always guys who were either wearing some sort of like, rock and roll shirt or some sort of other shirt. It was always happening. But you were talking about, you wore the Cobra Kai shirt, slit right down the middle. You can see Cobra Kai, and nobody did anything about that.
No one said anything, and the reason why, like and you're right, people do that, but I didn't ever know other people's situations, like, if they had a deal with these brands or whatever. So, for me, the fact that I was buying most of my gear from Hot Topic because I was easy because no matter what town I was in, if I needed something, real quick, there was a mall that had a Hot Topic. So I just wore stuff that were specific to me, and I'm always about, like, giving little secret shout outs to, like, people, and so in that post, I had said that that was a shout out to my homeboys that were in Louisville at the time, because on my off days, I'd be hanging out with them and getting into shenanigans, and we called ourselves the Cobra Kai.
Hmm.
So to me, that was my way of being like, so when they watched, they were like, "Oh, Shelly, wear the Kai shirt for us," like whatever. So I was always doing. I had the Misfits gloves. No one ever said boo about that. I wore my last time appearing. I was wearing a Casualties shirt. The photo with Ozzy Casualties shirt.
Hmm.
Um, let's see what else. I wore a lot of Misfits. I wore some Ramones. Like no one ever was like anything. But you're right, that always was a thing, but that was, like, me tripping out because you're kind of always told in show business, period, that, like, you gotta get a clearance for that. You can't just wear whatever. So, I'm glad I was able to like, no one ever said anything. The only time anyone ever said anything about my outfit was when they decided to go PG And Stephanie, I was in a locker room with the divas and she was having a meeting with us. And she was like, "We can't have your asses hanging out. You know, like Ariel, her ass is always hanging out." And it was so interesting because I remember I've told this story a lot of times, but some people haven't heard it. Um, everyone in the it seemed like everyone in the room was kind of like, "Oh, she's picking on Shelly," because she was like, "And then we can't, you know, this, like Ariel, she's always looking like she's gonna pop out." And like she kept using me as an example. But every time she used me as the example, I thought, "She's absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Got the memo." Because again, no one ever said anything about the way I dressed, ever. That was the only time anything. And then it was really cool because after the meeting was over, she said, "I just wanna tell everybody, I'm not picking on Ariel. I just know she can handle it. That's why I was using her as an example." And I thought that was so freaking cool because the whole time I didn't take it as her picking on me. And the fact that she went out of her way to, like, justify herself, I thought that was so cool. So that's why when people have, like, brought up to me, "Oh, Stephanie didn't like you because you were a Heyman girl," I thought she didn't because she was always really nice to me, and I think about that scenario and that situation, and I'm like, "She didn't have to do that, but she absolutely did," and I thought that was so freaking cool. So that's my, wardrobe talk right there, 101, but it's so cool to have that story because I don't know why. I don't know if she said anything about me before, but I've never heard her talk shit about me. I don't know. Maybe she has.
Surprised that she didn't steal any part of your wardrobe afterwards. If she mentioned you specifically, that would have meant maybe she would have had her ass out in some shape or form. Because usually, if she sees something, she takes it. So that would have been my experience in having to study Stephanie McMahon. Is she sees something and she takes it. So I'd have to go back and look at the film.
You have to go
But going
back.
back to your, yeah, that's it. That's the official. I have to go back and look at the film.
Just
But
review it.
going back to your gear, right? So, like doing signings and obviously working with Kevin over the years, I've seen 15 million iterations of you and Kevin pose in your pictures. But the one I think about is like the red iconic duo of you guys, him with the red tux and you with the red dress. Did you guys get on board with, okay, we need this color scheme or you need to get this and I'll get that? Like, did you guys talk about your gear being paired up or did it just happen to work that way? Because obviously we think vampire, we think blood, we think red.
You know, I don't really recall us having conversations, but I kind of have a memory like memories of him being like looking to see what I'm wearing and like, okay, to or he'd be like, "Oh, should I wear the black and white or the," like I kind of remember him like asking me like color scheme, like, "Oh, should I wear the black and white one or should I wear the red and black one?" And so that's as far as it really went, and I think Kevin just kinda left it up to me and was, like, had on hand what he knew would match, and he would just kinda go by whatever I was gonna wear, which is really cool because I've told the story a million times, and one of my big inspirations of being interested in the wrestling business is Cyndi Lauper, and so, like, when I was a kid, it was always cool to, like, wonder what her hair is gonna look like, wonder what she's gonna be wearing because I loved it, right? And so it was awesome as Ariel doing that my own way, and then little girls or teenage girls, when I'd be, like, going from the to the building or whatever, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, we wanted to see what your hair was gonna be like today or what you're gonna be wearing today." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm having my Cyndi Lauper moment right now." So for me, that was my experience with my gear. I had fun with it. I just made it my own. No one said nothing. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't really recall people like getting stuff made and the company was paying for it. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
I'm sure top guys like Undertaker or, you know,
Maybe, yeah.
Shawn Michaels or Triple H. I'm sure things like that where the bill was taken care of if something extravagant needed to be done. I'm sure Undertaker never had to worry about where a cloak was coming from,
This is true. This is
but
true.
or Triple H's throne that needed to match his, chain link chest
Right,
cover. I'm sure
right.
that he didn't have to worry about the chain link chest cover, but
I wonder
you
how
know,
that all works out because then, you think about these specific characters. They must have had like Boogeyman, for example. in
Right,
my era.
exactly.
They must have had to been like, "Okay, we want you to have this." I love Boogeyman. I should ask him because I'm really curious now, like, how I'm gonna start asking my friends around that have been in WWE, especially the ones that made a good name for themselves. Because now I'm curious, because is it that you get to a certain status and then, like, they cover it, or how does that work? Because I was on the low and totem pole, so I can only speak for that, I guess, level.
I'm gonna guess you get one. They give you one, like, here's your one. Do what you can with it, right?
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
then that one is used and abused. And then when the one is done, you need to either replicate it or whatever. I mean, Kevin's told me the process of getting robes and how that's done and all that. And obviously, Ric Flair was always buying his own robes. I know that. Honky Tonk Man bought his own jumpsuits. Randy Savage bought his own capes. Like, I know that's, how that goes. But, you know, the Mordecai staff,
Right.
it's not like Mordecai had to go out and make the staff, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So, yeah, Boogie, I'm sure that, like, fur that they need covering his shoulders, I'm sure they were like, we'll get you the fur. Well, the fur's on us, but the fur he uses for the like Comic Cons and the public appearances now, it's probably not the same fur.
Well,
Gonna go out on a
maybe.
limb.
You know what? And I do the same thing with certain outfits. I did it a couple times where same kind of vibe. This is for not camera time. This is for camera time. So touche, Chadster,
It's what it,
touche.
hey, listen, I mean, it's these are the kinds of things, but it's interesting, and I'm sure you've seen this in your appearances, how much people go nuts for the gear. And I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
there's a guy I've seen on Instagram. His whole basement is like, what do you call it, mannequins dressed up in the gear with pictures of the actual gear and the match it was in. And he does all reels of like, this is the gear I'm going to spotlight this week. And it's like, I never would have thought as a kid growing up that that gear would be anywhere but with either the person or the company or whatever. Never thought it'd be in somebody's basement, like a baseball jersey. I mean, I'm,
Right.
I'm a baseball fan, but it is such a vast collector world now. It's so different than it was even 20 years ago. Uh, Anything that you mentioned the socks last week, people want the
No.
socks. They want everything. They want
Everything and
everything.
anything. Here's the thing. I was so butthurt when I got fired and I moved back to California that the big thing at that time was doing the eBay auctions for wrestlers, right? So I auctioned off so many things, especially like my aerial dress, that black dress that's like when I first came out, that Lake Avenue dress is one of them. And I just was like, I didn't want anything to remind me of that, and I knew I needed to squirrel away some money because my WWE money was going to dwindle down because I didn't know if like, at that point, TNA wasn't even on the horizon, like, they hadn't contacted me or anything yet, so kind of in a panic mode, right? So I totally made a ton of money, and I regret it so much because I want that stuff, and it's so much so that that dress, Lake Avenue discontinued, so for years and years and years and years, I kept trying to find it and I couldn't, and then a few years back, I had an autograph signing and I finally found one, and I got it, and that's the one I have now, and it's, like, falling apart now because I've had it for
Oh,
so long, but it's fine because I think what I'm gonna do is just take it to, like, a seamstress and, like, be like, Here's the pattern, make me different, like, patterns and colors, blah, blah, blah." But the point is I was on a search for years because I was butthurt and panicking that I did this big old eBay store sale of all this gear, and I hate that I did that. I think that Casualty shirt was in it, like, so much of my aerial stuff, and I wish I had it now. Like, I'm so mad at myself about that.
nothing you could do at this point.
I know.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Because it's not
Even
just the item itself, it's the energy behind it.
right, I
If I
get it.
were able to put on the OG dress right now, something scientifically would happen with
I get it.
my vibrations, my frequencies, everything. That's what I want. So if you're out there and you have that dress, can I have it back, please? Like, we could work out some kind of weird deal with, like, can I have it back?
I remember probably maybe 2 years ago, uh, I found one of Kevin's uh, jackets on eBay, and it was one that he kind of similar story. Wish he had back, kind of regretted selling, but did kind of the similar thing. But I was like, well, I'm gonna get it back for him, right?
Aw.
And the price was pretty decent compared to what he sold it for. Price is pretty decent. So I put an offer in, and the offer got rejected. And 5 minutes later, the price was like $700 more. It's like,
Ew.
what a dick. What a freaking dick.
Ew.
So because somebody showed interest in it, they jacked the price up. If that's not wrestling, I don't know what is.
I don't know what is. That is. Ugh, I hate that story. I hate that story. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Ew.
So it's out there somewhere. I'm sure we could probably find it at some point. If
I
you're
hope
watching
so.
TMI, let's get the dress back. The dress movement has begun. All right. So I have a question before we get rolling into what we're going to talk about today. I saw
Yes.
you post about this, and I've heard this in the past. I heard the reference to the name. What is the origin of Funtime Shelly?
Oh my gosh, I love this story. So, um, long story short as I can make it, when I was like in high school and then fresh out of high school, like to like my early 20s, I wasn't somebody that medicated or drank because I was always afraid to throw up with drinking because I'd see my friends throw up. And then, of course, they had cheap beer when I go hang out with them. So when I tried drinking, I was like, ew, this tastes really gross. I can totally see me throwing up. So I just had no interest. And the cannabis, it was just brainwashed into me that that's just bad news. Like, I came from a very strict religious background, so I just knew not to do it. So I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So when I got to, like, out of high school, my friends, they were a couple years older than me, and they were drinking and this and that, and they had this TGI Fridays because all my friends at that point had their, like, out of high school little office jobs, you start off, and so they go to the TGI Fridays, and they always needed a designated driver. So they'd be like, "Come on, Shelly," but at this point, when they'd beg me, because I'm the only sober one, they're annoying after a while. At first, it's fun, and they get really, really annoying. And so I'd be like, "Dude, no, I'm not gonna go. Like, I don't wanna go. I don't want someone to throw up in my car, like, whatever." And so they'd be like, "Come on, come on." And so they started saying, "Come on, but you're Funtime Shelly. Everyone wants to hang out with
Mhm.
Funtime Shelly." And so they would say this whole day, Funtime Shelly. And then they'd say, "Come on, Shelly, all the chips you can eat, all the chip," because I am a big chip lover. "Oh, okay, fine." And I would go, and Mario, shout out to Mario, he'll never see this. He'd get drunk and he'd always do this thing to where he'd see girls. Because here's the thing, I hung out with a bunch of dudes. And so this is so disgusting. What we used to do is we'd all go out and girls would be genuinely interested in them because I was looking all hot with them, with like my little platforms, my little dress. And so girls would be like, "Who are these guys?" And then they would say, "Okay, the girl, she's ready for me to go. So go to the bathroom." And then I'd go to the bathroom. It was a whole sting operation. They used me as bait. And I was fine with it because, like, whatever. Well, okay, duh. And I was kind of disappointed in the girls for wanting dudes just based on because another girl that they think is like a somebody. Oh, it was very disappointing all around. But they were paying for my food. They were showing me a good time, but that's why I was fun time Shelly. Like they were like, "Shelly doesn't need a drink. She doesn't need a smoke. She's fun time Shelly." And what's so interesting is when I went back to TNA and I had my infamous botched match with Rebel. I'm so sorry to Rebel for that. Um, there was somebody there that was trying to take credit for Funtime Shelly. And they were trying
Oh.
to, yeah. It was here. This is what we're gonna do. He said because me and Al Snow were talking, and he came in. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm the one that came up with Funtime Shelly." I said, "Ugh, I don't think so. That's like from like when I was in school." And he was like, "No," and he pretty much was like, I said, you're always upbeat. You're like a fun time, like Funtime Shelly." And you were like, "Yeah, that's it." And I said, "Dude, if you did say that, that's why I was like, yeah, that's it," because my friends used to call me that. So fast forward. And I said it was a long story short, but I guess it's longer than I thought. That's what she said. I had to throw it in there. Um, so when it translated to wrestling and branding myself as Funtime Shelly, it was my second run in the indies. And at that time, that's when I was chasing around and I he had so much fun with his wrestling character and I loved it. And I was like, I want to have fun like that, dude. Like, oh, 60 Ariel or badass Selena. It's like, I want to be like fun. I want to be like me. Like how they always say in wrestling, you got to do an extension of yourself, but bump it up. Like, hello, I am Funtime Shelly. Like, duh. And so that's when I was like, I am going to start wrestling. And my whole vibe when I was wrestling as Funtime Shelly was so much fun. Like, I know goes in so many different rabbit holes, but I know you're gonna be like, "What?" But I'm just gonna say it like this. There was a time where Dennis Rodman and I were in this conversation, and he kept making 2 hand movements. One of them was this, and one of them was this, and he would say, touche, or you gotta make it work." And my friend Kevin, who works with Gathering of the Juggalos, Kevin Gill, and, worked with Hood Slam when I was working at Hood Slam here in Southern California or in Northern California, he would do the commentary there. And so I would go in the middle of the ring and do the thing where I'd alternate my knees and I'd be doing this. He's going, Shelly Martinez making it work all day long. Like it was just stupid and fun time Shelly because I fell in love with wrestling and saw the fun in it and took away all the serious part. And so that's when it translated to my career and branding myself as Fun Time Shelly was bringing the origins of who I was back in the day and why my friends gave me that nickname. I'm not someone that gave myself the nickname. They gave it to me, and I just went and you go, got to make money with it, brother. And that's what I did. Went and made money with it.
Interesting. Okay, because I mean, yeah, so that's where I had heard the name Funtime Shelly, and I was like, why do I know that name? But you did use the name on the indies.
Yeah, at Funtime Shelly and on my social media. There's someone that has it, and I'm pleased
Okay,
because
so
I have
that's
Funtime
maybe
Shelly
why.
back.
Okay, that's
I
is
was
that what
at
you were
Funtime
originally?
Shelly. I was at Funtime Shelly originally, yes.
Okay, so that's probably why I remember that. And I was like, when you posted, I was like, why do I know that? Why do I remember that? And okay, but now going back to something you said, changing the perception of the character for the independents. Now, it is good to reinvent yourself on the independents because maybe that's where again you get that second mainstream run in a different reinvented persona. But because a certain era knew you as that very dark, deep, you know, hardcore, like not mean girl, but you know what I'm saying, like a tough chick. That's a hard one to drop. That's a hard one for people to change the perception on. And I can still see how people will go straight to Vampire Shelly, Selena Shelly, and not look at, like I had said when you popped on tonight, I go, wow, this is very Pink here. Pink to me equals happy. It equals like very like bombastic, you know, like it's not like dark. And I'm not picturing you every week coming on here being like fangs out, let's bite somebody, let's see blood. Like, no, it's completely different personality than I think what everybody would expect when they think of Ariel, Salinas, and the character, and it's separating the two. So interesting that you went out of your way to try to change the perception. I never knew that.
I did. And that's what, as a performer, was making me excited to be back in the indies because it wasn't just about getting bookings and being able to pay some bills and not struggle so much. It also had to do with I had a challenge. I had to make people who bought that ticket because of the fandom of Ariel or Salinas or both. And here I am coming out, Funtime Shelly, making it work all day long. And I did make it work. And people were so used to me, even though Salinas wasn't a heel, kind of more in a heel vibe. And so, as a performer and as a professional wrestler, to have a crowd that already has in their head who they think you are and how the match is gonna go and the energy is gonna be and swerve them, that's like my dopamine hit. And then not only that, to pull them in and get them into it and clapping for Funtime Shelly. Like, there'd be times where people didn't know what to do exactly, and then when it was time for them to, like, clap for me to, like, get out of a hold or whatever, I'd be like, "Come on, I'm like a fairy, like Tinkerbell, you have to clap, you," and then they would always get a pop, and they'd be like, "Okay, yeah," I was like, "I'm like Tinkerbell, help me." I was so dumb about it, and it sounds so over the top, but the crowd was into it, and to be somebody that always came across as so sexual and, like, in this role, it was, like, throwing all that out, even though Funtime Shelly was sexy because she was just being herself. She wasn't sexy because she was this vampire vixen and, ooh, those vibes, and she wasn't sexy because she's this freaking Chicana that's ready to beat some ass, but she's hot. What she was just Funtime Shelly, man, there to have a fun time, to make sure everyone has a fun time, and to win the match, and so when people were receiving that and they were like, "Wow," or whatever, or I'll meet people and they would be like, "You're like the happiest vampire I've ever met in my entire life." I'm like, "Well, duh, you don't have to be miserable if you're a vampire." And then when people are like, "Oh, pink," I'm like, "Oh, duh, you can love pink and still be a vampire." And it's true. So, like, Funtime Shelly was a real cool way for me to really show people who I really was and enchant them and then still work them, which was really like getting my job done. But then what's cool is when people wanted those characters or they wanted me to be the heel, like, it's like I took all of those characters and intertwined them all and found where the medium was and was them. Like, I had this match in Oregon. Oh my gosh. It was so amazing. Excuse me, I was valeting, and I wasn't like a vampire really or anything, but I did have kind of like a rocker look to me or whatever. And I just remember this kid, this guy, young guy, he had like a dollar bill and he was like doing this. So I just walked over to him like all crazy, like, and so he was kind of like, "Oh shit." And I grabbed it and I just ripped it up and then I put it in his mouth. Like, I used to love doing stuff like that. Or when I was doing CW of Hollywood, this guy one time he was like, "Oh, your breath stinks. You need a mint, a mint." So I stopped and I walked over him same way, grabbed it and I put it in my mouth and I chewed it and I spit it at him. He almost came at me. Like, I loved stuff like that. And to be honest with you, you don't have to mute these names because I just have to give props where props are due. A lot of me learning how to be that kind of heel, which I loved because for so long I was Funtime Shelly and I turned the audience to love me, was watching Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana and their feud in NWA Hollywood. They made my ass off of my seat when they would go into the crowd and they get like, and I'd watch the energy of the room and they would just be like, through the roof, man. And so I lived for doing stuff like that. Or like, one time a person, they were like telling me, "Oh, you need to eat, you need to eat, da, da, da," and he had a hot dog. I grabbed his hot dog, split it in half, threw it on the ground. Like, I loved it, but it all had to do with because I kept reinventing myself to make it interesting and to just feel fulfilled in my wrestling.
Yeah. I Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, by the way, just a good little shout out there. When they had that national deal and they were popping, I forget what affiliate I watched. That was such a great hour of wrestling. I loved their show. I mean, and then I was recording it and or TiVoing or whatever the hell it was at that point in 2010. But that was a great friggin' show. So I don't know. Is that where the NWA like migrated to though at some point? Because wasn't Pierce and Cabana on the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood?
They were. I'm not sure about all of this because there's like it seems like a lot of different changing hands or different companies that kind of work together. So I'm not quite sure on like all of that. But here's the funny story. I didn't even know I was gonna be talking about this, but this is TMI, so here we go.
Uh-oh,
Here's
do you want to hear it?
Let's hear the TMI.
Is this the official debut of the TMI alarm?
The TMI alarm. Let's hear it. I haven't heard it yet.
Is it worth it for this though?
I think so.
All right, here's the official. Whenever there's going to be a mention of TMI on this show, you will now hear this.
TMI is about to happen. TMI is about to happen.
TMI coming your way.
Cover. Protect your head. Tuck your chin. Okay, so it's interesting. I'm trying to think about how to say this. I just have to say it, dude. Okay, this is why this is the TMI. I'm gonna say names. You don't have to mute them because it's gonna be very obvious who they are. Not only that, I'm a huge, like I said a little while ago, huge supporter of you have to give props where props are due. Even if you don't like somebody and they deserve props, come on, you can't be like that. Don't be a hater. You got to give props. Okay. So, Colt Cabana. He was over there at NWA Hollywood. Now, last week I talked about with Paul London how I was waiting to get approved for this apartment when I was in a really low place in my life. And that's when I watched the High Spots shoot interview with him and Kendrick. So, and if you haven't watched it, go check it out. Or if you want to know what I'm talking about, go check it out. Last episode. And so we got the apartment. And that's when, like, this is where I want to get Colt Cabana's take on this. Whether people like him or not, he really did create the blueprint and have him be an independent wrestler and really like make it work. Like not just with just wrestling, but through merchandise, through podcasting, things like that. When I was I started podcasting in 2009, and the only people that I was aware of was RVD and Cabana, to be honest. So, and not only that, but like I was always very inspired by Cabana because that's when I would ask him questions like his equipment. Like I'd see his little thing that he would use. I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like, blah, blah, blah. Always picking his brain. So Cabana was wrestling at CWF Hollywood. And I went to a show just to see Cabana. And I cannot express to you how much that night meant to me. I went with my friend Brian Zombie, shout out. And there was people like Scorpio Sky, who was one of my first friends in wrestling, that were there. It's like, because I was away for so long, I forgot about some of the SoCal talent here, right? That real good SoCal talent that at that time wasn't really getting I felt, deserved time on television. So I was like, oh my gosh. And from top to bottom, from that show that I watched, I felt like a fan again. And I came from a broken place where wrestling hurt me so bad that I had to step away from it for a couple years. And this was my introduction back into it, which was going to this show. And it was a reminder of why I loved wrestling, and I became a fan of people who I had no idea about because they weren't my era. Big Duke, shout out. Nick Madrid, shout out. Still friends with both of them to this day. And I just remember like Big Duke when he was out there, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And like I even gone out of my way. Like I made a Big Duke shirt. Like fast forward a little bit late, like I was such a fan. And so Nick Madrid, oh my gosh, he was so amazing. And so I was just like, holy cow. So that made me want to taste. And I'll never forget, I was in that studio apartment. I was doing cardio on my little Tony Little Gazelle. Remember the Gazelle? That's what I had for cardio. And I was just praying. And I was like, Lord, I feel I'm supposed to be at NWA Hollywood. And I feel like you're telling me that if they were to offer me that right now, it's not about money. So if they can't afford to pay me, just do it anyways. It doesn't matter. And I swear to you, within minutes, Dave Marquez called me. And I was like, "Oh." And then he pretty much was like, "You came to the show and" because I came to the show and people were like the fans reacting to me. So he was pretty much like, "Hey, would you want to do something here, like an interview, whatever?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just was doing cardio," and I told him the story. And he's like, "We really don't have a big budget right now." And I said, "You know what? I feel like God told me that if that was the case, that not to do that. So I'm here to tell you that, like, it was a labor of love for me to do NWA Hollywood, CWF Hollywood, and I it renewed so much in me. At that time, they were filming in Glendale, and it was in a studio, so it felt really good. It was blending both worlds of acting and wrestling, and how, like, wrestling's always been like theater to me, and I remember, like, looking out into the ring from, like, the stage area, and, like, it just was like theater, man, and I was like, I just so fell in love, and then that's when I was doing, I didn't wrestle, but I would manage, which was fine, and I first started out being an interviewer, which I love because I am the hostess with the mostest, Chadster, and
Mhm.
one of the things that I booked a lot here in town, aside from wrestling, would be like hosting or doing different things, whatever. I love, like, I have the whole host voice when I do it. Like, oh my gosh, I love it. So I had a lot of fun with that. And then they transitioned it to a storyline to where, like, I was getting involved and then I became like a manager. And that's when I would be watching right there live these matches that Pierce and Cabana would have, and how the audience would just be on fire, dude. And like, I was just like, "I wanna do that. I wanna make people feel that way because they don't expect me to be like that, you know?" And so that's why when I go out there, that's why I had that moment where I went as far as to chew the mint and spit it at the guy. Like, I would get into people's faces to where I knew people on my end would intervene, so I would go hard. Like, there's a clip, I gotta find it and show you. A guy, he looks like he wants to hit me, and I won't stop, and I'm just like going deep on him, and they're, like, holding me back. It's a whole thing, but it's because CWF Hollywood had so much magic to it at that era, and, like, that's when, like, people now know him as, what do they know him as at, LA Knights,
Yep. Yeah.
Ricker. He'll
Sean
always be
Ricker.
Ricker to me, man. He'll always be Ricker because of CWF Hollywood. That's when,
Yeah, he was
uh,
awesome there.
I didn't get to work with, but I got to share a space with, Paul Bearer, got to know him more and things like that, and, like, these different iconic moments that, like, I had, and there was, like, people there that I was like, "Why aren't they on, like, big TV like a Scorpio Sky?" Johnny Goodtime, freaking, there was just so many, dude, and it was so cool that when AEW came around, seeing some of those same people, first of all, it was Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground, seeing them do well in Lucha Underground and then do well in AEW, becoming household names because they always deserve that. Willie Mack, he's another one that was there. There were so many OGs, the, Rockless Monsters, like, there were so many freaking good talent going on over there, and at that time, I was already a vet, and, as a vet, looking around thinking, "Why is this not getting more attention?" So it was so cool when they did get I wasn't involved in it at that point, but when they got their TV time because fans needed to see their show and their product.
Yeah. That was great. I mean, great presentation. It was awesome. That studio set was great. It was very cool. And yeah, that's I completely agree. But I just can't remember where I watched it. I don't remember the affiliate it was on. I just used to set the DVR and it would be sitting there. I'd watch like three at a time, and boom, you would catch, like you're saying, Sean Ricker, LA Knight, the Grappler was on there at some point. I mean, there was some great Matt Striker, I think, was doing either play by play or color. Like
He did, that's right. Yeah, I
yeah,
forgot about that era.
they
That
were pulling some good names. I mean, it was good.
So here's the thing, on that point, here goes to the TMI part. First of all, I've never talked publicly about that, elliptical moment with Marquez. Dude, it hurt, and I'm not saying this to bury Marquez, this is just how I feel. I feel like he never utilized me the way he should have with the value that I brought to the table, especially then, even though, like, I'd still been gone off of TV for a little bit. It was more fresh than it is, like, nowadays, and I always felt like I was doing I don't mean to sound this, like, full of myself, but I was kinda doing them a favor. And I felt like I after a while just kinda treated like a jobber, and it's like, "Dude, I put asses in seats. I don't even ask for anything because I'm doing this because I love wrestling, man." And it's hurt my feelings because Marquez, there was a time where, like, he had some health issues, and I was always really worried about him. And so, like, I genuinely care about Marquez, and I know Marquez for a long time. I've known him since back in the day, like what I talked about last week, when I would be training at the Inoki Dojo, that era of Shelly. I knew Marquez then. I always knew Marquez. But for some reason, I just feel jobbed out by him, and it makes me sad. And there's times I wanna tweet out this photo of him and I from CWF Hollywood era, and I wanna be like, "Remember when you" or "Here's proof that you used to like me." Like, I wanna and it's like, I know I shouldn't care, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, I cannot help that I have this soft spot for Marquez, and that's why it hurts my feelings so much, especially because I never asked for anything, man, except to be invited to be involved so that I could pay for the business,
Right.
especially here in SoCal, man. And not only that, but because that show I went to just see Cabana, but then I left with so much more, literally had me boss my way onto that show because I knew I had to be a part of it. I had to. And so, and some of the memories I have from that show, unforgettable. So, Marquez, I am forever butthurt by you. I swear to goodness.
You should be, because I mean that's as somebody who's worked just around the business, doesn't I don't understand how certain vets just get shit on in that capacity. And that's where I will classify that as being shit on, because others got opportunities when you didn't. I don't get that. Marquez has been around forever. He's worked on a bazillion projects that never got off the ground and some that did. So I don't get why certain people, he wouldn't just take that opportunity to give them a chance to be a part of the one that did. You know what I mean? Because you
Yeah.
always see it's like, BGWF is launching, and so and so and so and so are behind it. And, they think this is the next big thing in pro wrestling. And they've already signed, X, Y, and Z, former WWE superstar. And it never goes anywhere. But then you got the one or two things that actually get going. And when somebody wants to be a part of it, I don't understand why they don't dig into that more. Sometimes I equate it to people like the smell of their own farts a little more. They
Maybe.
do like being people involved.
It maybe, and, the thing is, like, first of all, here's when this is the guy see, it's on it means so much to me. This is in my favorites folder, okay? That's how much the CW, because in yeah, Oregon, they were affiliated with CWF Hollywood at the time. That's why I was there. So this is me after put the, I know it's hard to see.
No.
I put the dollar in the guys, and so there's that, and
Kind of what I
then
thought the guy might look like too, which is funny.
I'm trying to find where is it?
I hope that
In
guy's a
the
TMI listener.
probably not. I gotta look for it, but in my favorites, there is that picture of me and Marquez, and that's why I think about it a lot, because if you make it in my favorites folder, that's deep, and so Marquez is in my favorites folder, and I see that photo a lot, and you would think because it triggers me, I would unfavorite it, but I don't.
Well, if you're out there and you're listening, there you have it.
Yeah.
There it is, Marquez.
I can't find it.
Balls in your court. We are 50 minutes into TMI, and we have not yet tackled the topic that we are going to talk about today, but it is time to discuss the main event, and that is our first ever little debate, because I think you and I are on different sides of the fence here as it relates to a big pop culture news story that has infiltrated a lot of people's timelines, and that is, I guess you relate to her as former personal trainer, nutrition, workout guru, Susan Powter of the 90s fame. What was her catchphrase?
Stop the insanity!
Stop the insanity. Yeah, that's what it was. This week, we've seen a lot of her. She's got a documentary coming out, and we've heard about her latest job of driving for Uber Eats as a way to pay the bills. You and I have talked about it via text to prepare for the show. We are on different sides of the coin here. Now, I will turn it over to you to give a little bit more exposition, but when you heard this story, what did you think about this? And do you remember the Stop the Insanity craze of the 90s?
Okay. So back in November last year, I'm always praying, and I was praying for God to send me some women with these specific qualities that I was lacking because I needed that support, right? And then shortly after that, I saw this clip of Susan Powter on the Drew Barrymore show. And I don't watch that show, I don't keep up, whatever, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, Susan freaking Powter." Now, Susan Powter is very influential to little Shelly because when it was in her heyday, first of all, I've always been an athlete, period. I remember being like super, super young, single digits, 5 a.m. doing mousercise. Like, I've just always been this person.
Nice.
So Susan Powter really caught my attention back then because I was a little older, wasn't just a little tiny girl anymore. And the way she talked and everything really got my attention and made me feel like I want to listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. So, like everyone else, I kind of forgot about her until I saw this clip. And so when they're talking about that, what stood out to me was the Uber Eats. And the reason why it stood out to me is because after I decided to retire from wrestling in 2018, I was like, okay, so now I'm not wrestling on the weekends. What am I going to do? And around that time, there was no Uber Eats, but there was Postmates. Postmates was very, very new. And I was like, okay, I don't have to really talk to anybody. I can find new places to like go to or whatever. I can drive around town and I'll just wear really cute outfits and like feel good about myself while I'm working. Awesome. So that's exactly, and I'd smoke a joint the entire time when I was in my car. So that's exactly what I did. And at first it was really good because I would schedule it at the high demand times. And at that time, because it was so new, they had like a guarantee that if you worked between like just before lunch and a couple hours after lunch, you make $100 minimum, no matter what, as long as you meet the quota of how many deliveries, right? So for me, I was like, as long as I make $100 a day, I'm fine with that. So that's what I would do. And it worked out really well, but then things started to change. They weren't really doing that anymore. The window of the time to make was smaller, therefore the guarantee was smaller. And then, of course, you started seeing the dwindling of how much percent you were getting. So it was really rough. And then not only that, but because I was trying to like not feel bad that and there's nothing wrong with being a food delivery, but just like where my mind space was, leaving the wrestling business, this and that, and this is what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life now. And I would have like these moments, dude. And then because to help me get through it, I would dress cute and like whatever. I can't tell you how many times I got hit on by rich ass people because I would be like in Beverly Hills area or on the west side, and I'd go to famous people's houses and be like, "How are you, the Postmates girl?" Like, what? It was always the thing. And they would offer me money to like come inside and hang out. And like they would smell that my car smelled. I'm like, oh, and like it was a whole journey. And like I said, at first it was good. I felt like I can do it, whatever. But when the things started to change, especially when Uber Eats started to happen and become a thing and there was competition, it got really messy. And it was rough, man. And like, it was really rough. And I had some really rough moments when it's like I was like running myself thin for a couple measly bucks. It was hard, dude. And what that did to me psychologically and, like, being like, well, that's why I was like, "Well, I guess I better at least start to, like, continue doing the autograph signings." I mean, it's not like I retired from that, so I did that for a little bit to help me with that, but then even within that, I stopped doing because I got triggered and I felt like it wasn't a good environment for me. So then when I was solely relying on just the Postmates and Uber Eats money, because you bet your ass that I was doing both at one time, and that was nerve-wracking when one bell would go off on one app and another one, but that's what I had to do. I had to play both sides. And then I had to work later to like meet my quota. And then I'd find myself sometimes in bad areas and it's late. Like it was rough, dude. So when Susan F. and Powter started talking about it, I knew exactly what she was talking about, dude. From being, not that I was a Susan Powter, she was on a whole other level, but being somebody that was being successful and doing what they loved. And because of whatever different reasons, that's now, at least you feel, been taken away from you. What do I do now? And I was on board. So I followed her, and then that's when I started to see how she posts. And then for me, it was like, wow, dude, because when she'd be in her car, like, oh, here I am waiting in the parking lot. I used to do that. I used to wait in the parking lot and then you wait for the like whatever, is it worth it? Da da da. Like everything she was doing, I related to because that's how I used to live my life. Because I was so mad at wrestling, I refused to be in the business in any way, shape, or form. I was like, I'd rather do Postmates. And then it ran me down, dude. And what's crazy is watching her just put herself out there on her Instagram, and this is before the film came out. So this is back in November. I was religiously following and watching her videos, and when she was reminding me of who the F I am, Chad, with the juicing. My juicer broke like 2 years ago. One of those things, I just never got it replaced. I have GI tract issues along with other issues. So I found that juicing, incorporating it in my daily, my health improved immensely. And she was reminding me of the simplicity of who the F I was. And it shook me up and out of this daze that I've been living in for a few years because she was just being there herself on Instagram. And then when she's like, things started like more interviews and things like that, you would see the moments of her. And I related to it because that's what wrestling specifically does for me. That's what, you know, even getting on Vampire Radio or TMI or someone else's podcast, I know what that does for me, and I was watching it happen to her, and it's like you don't know that unless you live it to recognize it, and so I got even more inspired, and fast forward, her film came out, I watched it, and again, related, and there's a moment she has with Jamie Lee Curtis, and she says, she's starts to ugly cry. And she doesn't cry through the whole thing really, but she ugly cries at this moment. She says, "You've restored my faith in women." And that hit me hard because even though it was, the way the story was, it was sad and everything. And I'm very sensitive. I cry all the time. I related. I didn't cry. And I kept thinking to myself, why aren't I crying? And I thought, because I relate so much that to me, this is normal. But to the outsider, this isn't really normal, but to me, it's normal. And a lot of the things that she shared with her living situations and this and that, I experienced those things. And so it's like, it was normal to me. So that's why it was no thing. But when she said that to Jamie Lee Curtis, I don't care like if it was a setup conversation. When she said it, she can barely get those words out. I feel it was very genuine because I know that feeling and it did make me cry. And part of my big problem in life, even though I'm such a man hater, is my biggest wound is from women because men are supposed to hurt me. But women that have hurt me, those scars run so deep that I felt that when she said that. And so that's my 2 cents on connecting with her, the whole thing. I know you feel differently, but
I do.
that's where I'm coming from, and I'm dying to hear your thoughts now.
Well, look, first off, very powerful, the connection that you made. And the fact that you can share it is wonderful. Okay. We appreciate that as listeners, as co-hosts, that you can love it.
But
Wonderful. But Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean, could we pick somebody from the Hollywood mainframe that could like manufacture this work any better to dig somebody out of obscurity and help her push forward into the spotlight? So you started following Susan Powter in November. Is that what you said?
yeah,
Okay. Did she mention in November the documentary?
she did because she said they already had filmed it.
They already filmed it. Okay. This is such a work. It's not even funny. Come on. Come on. You can't smell this a mile away. This is the feel-good story to kick off 2026. As I'm doing my research, okay, she had some bad investments. She had her company kind of like get all messed up. I get it. It's happened to a lot of these stars of the 90s. Whatever. I get. Are we supposed to feel sympathy that she's doing Uber Eats as a job? Is this she signed a book deal 2 years ago. Where did that money go? What happened to the advance of her book deal that she signed? She was signed to Rosie O'Donnell's production company. What happened to that? Where did that sob story go? What was all this information? That just decided to go away. I was reading in her biography that, you know, she's become so destitute, she now collects Medicaid. Oh, like a lot of other 71-year-old people. She's just a normal person now. This is not like a sob story. She's just a normal person. This is all a work for a documentary.
I understand how you feel.
I love your calmness.
Because here's the thing, the same thing could be said about me when I'm like, "Oh, I had to do this," and I don't want people to feel sorry for me. But I'm telling you, maybe this makes me an asshole that, oh, now I'm a normal person, but when you work so hard for something and you put your heart and soul into something and then you no longer have it, or, you know, she has openly talked about how she's very bitter about towards the people that like screwed her over or whatever. So I can relate it in my way with wrestling, right? So it's like, it's not that, oh, now I have to be a normal person. It's that what psychologically all this stuff does. Like, I remember there was a time where to make money, I answered this ad to pass out flyers, and it was flyers in downtown LA. And the flyers were this propaganda for the Better Business Bureau. And it's so crazy because one of the people that were on there was WWE. And they paid us to go to City Hall and we had a chant, BBB is not for me. BBB is not for me. And that's when I was like, wait, that's when I realized that I didn't know that people got paid to be picketers and stuff like that, protesters.
Right.
So I was like, what? This is what we're doing? And then afterwards, in order to get our pay, which was $100, we had to do the march and then pass out for a set amount of time the flyers that we had. And I remember my sister was with me, and there was this lady, and she was like, "Hey, you got $5?" A homeless lady. And I was like, "No, sorry." And I was so broke, I didn't even have $5. And she was like, "Oh, well, have fun at your party," because she thought because of the way I was dressed nice, and I had flyers that it was a party. And I went around the corner, and that really triggered me, and I had a breakdown, and I was like, "Dude, I was in WrestleMania, and now this is my life. That a homeless lady is picking on me because she thinks da da da," and it just messed with my head. Now some could say, "Oh, now you have to be a normal person," and, like, whatever, but, like, that really effed me up, and that's what I see in the Susan Powter stuff is, like, I understand that, and it's not like boohoo, whatever, it's how it affected you and how you kinda lost everything because of this. And I know that here's the thing. Let's say because TMI is doing so good and it's getting all this attention, all of a sudden, like someone reaches out to me and was like, "Oh, we want to like represent you and blah 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 and this and that." And all of a sudden I do really well and like I'm getting the opportunities that I wanted and I'm getting my stories out, whatever. Like that's because people are now aware and there's interest and it's a different there's a different way that society works. And so I can have abundance now maybe that I couldn't like just 5, 10 years ago because things are different. Whereas Susan Powter, maybe they found this story, like it makes sense to me how things work here in town. Like the story checks out as far as I'm concerned that there was sometimes that happens. There's a conversation and then someone's like, "Yeah, she's doing Uber Eats." And they're like, "Well, go try to find her and interview her." Like, because that's the stories that people do want to hear. So to your credit, they do want to hear this, and this is the time to bring those stories to light. But that's not to negate the story that really is there. And I'm sorry, when I look at Susan Powter as a person that's been there and has lived through it, like, I see it on her soul. Like, it's not like I understand how you're like, "Oh, it's a work, the feel good stuff, blah, blah, blah," but I feel the story was there and that Hollywood saw an opportunity to go there, but I just really feel and then now Susan Powter can transform her life because of where social media is. Like, she keeps talking about how she wants to do what she did before, but do it her own way now. She can because now she can talk to people on live streams. She can do podcasts and get things out there. Like, the tools that are now what they are weren't there in the 90s. And so you take somebody from a yesteryear and repackage them. Yeah, there's money to be made, but I really feel that that story was there and that she was living this life and it was something that like, I remember going back to, we talked about last week when I said I always get warrants for my arrest because I had unpaid tickets because I never had my tags, and, like, just different things how different things haunt you and stuff like that, and, like, you have to, like that wore on me that even though I was still in wrestling and, like, getting booked at the time, like, it sucked to know that, like, how am I gonna get somewhere because I don't have my license? So I feel her story isn't a boo-hoo, she had to be normal. It's there's a lot of Susan Powders in different capacities out there, and that's why I'm all for the story to be out there. I don't care how it materialized, I feel it's real.
It could be. It's going to make for a great documentary. The last delivery had to be filmed by the Today Show.
It did though, because here's the thing, if I would've continued with Uber Eats and Postmates and all that, and then finally I don't have to do it anymore, or you know what? That did happen to me, okay? That did happen to me in the sense of there was a day where I didn't have to do it anymore because my situation changed, and a lot of that had to do with I was finally making money with my secret society. So, when I was able to be a full-time content creator, that's when I was able to have that moment where I had to do Uber Eats and Postmates anymore. I didn't film it because I wasn't very even though it wasn't a secret, I wasn't very open that that's what I was doing because it was embarrassing. Well, I'm supposed to be hot Shelly Martinez, and then not only that, like the way the job was making me feel. Maybe at first I was more open about it because I was like, oh, I did this order and I met this, one of the guys from like Marilyn Manson's band I delivered pizza to, like these different things. And like then the stories quieted down because it wore on me and I wasn't happy. And it felt like I was in that kind of struggle mode. But if I had an opportunity to like have a film crew capture my last order, hell yeah, I would have done it. It would have been like for me personally, a piece of content that I can have that not only makes me feel like I finally moved on and I'm not stuck and struggling and having to hustle so hard in Postmates and Uber Eats. Because that's the other thing. If there's people out there watching, listening, that's what they do. I'm pretty sure that like either that's their second job or that's their main job and they're fine with it because they're able to do whatever else they need to do and they have make up their own schedule. I was somebody who had a whole other career and then went to that. And that's what my point is like there's this mind f that happens. And I know with Susan Powter there was a lot of years before she became like a Uber Eats and that whole thing happened. But there's this mind f that happens, and that's going back to what we've talked about before, like freaking child actors and things like that. Like, when you have to go out in the real world, it's I get how it can sound boohoo-ish, but it's more than that. It's not just a sad story. It's not a just feel bad for me. It's pain. It's pain that you're trying to figure out, pain that scares you. So then all of a sudden now you're making choices out of desperation.
I get it. Oh, look, I get it. I think it is a great comeback story, but I just get very skeptical when I hear the players involved. And to me, Jamie Lee Curtis being involved and the documentary camera being there, it smells fishy to me. I just don't like the scent. I hope that she is back and she's 100% and she's doing things like she does in this video here. If you see, I have a video I want to pull up. I told you I did an extensive research. If she goes back to helping people like she's doing Rosie O'Donnell here in this leotard in the background. I mean, look at this is classic Rosie. What is it? What color would you call this? This is Movie with Susan Powter, 1994. That's Rosie O'Donnell in the background. I didn't know that she had celebrity endorsement back then. I thought she just did like the infomercial. So,
well, here's the thing. I'm going to be cheesy. Susan Powter has already helped me, brother. Okay, so there you go. Her being herself. And here's the other thing. Not just with reminding me of who the F I am, which has been like a theme ever since then. But because she's older, her Instagram posts are very just straightforward, no whistles, not perfect lighting, just it is what it is. That has also helped remind myself that I need to stop putting so much pressure on myself of having to have the perfect lighting, having to like have this perfect. And it's because I've been doing this for so long. Even going back to like the Colt Cabana, like, oh, what equipment? Like, I've always been very interested in like having that because as a model and actress, I learned lighting is everything and like having a good camera and all these different things that help your content look good. And this is what I do. This is what it's not a hobby. This is what I do. And I kind of got lost sight of it doesn't always have to be perfect. So she's also even helped me as with my content in times where I don't want to film anything because like I don't have makeup on. I'm like, who cares? Like I'm fine with myself without makeup. I love makeup, but I also am fine with not being on camera with no makeup. So yeah, like Susan Powter, like why not? So she's helped me, Chad.
now I will say, never loved her shaved head look, the short hairdo. But in doing the research, I came across her mid 2000s era.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen what she looked like in the mid 2000s? I'm going to put it up on the screen. This, and I'm a sucker for mid 2000s. I got to be honest with you. That's
Me
my
too.
time.
Me
Okay.
too.
This was the winning era. This was the top. Look at this.
So cute.
This is
So
She
cute.
looks like she could be a WWE diva right here.
So cute. And here's the thing. Okay, so in the documentary, her hair is brown and long. And then they do a makeover for her. And then she's like, I just want to feel like, good and blah, blah, blah. So she trusts the hairstylist. And then she hated it. And to this day, she talks about how she hated it. And she wanted back when she was envisioning stuff for herself, had this comeback. It was that era with the ponytail or whatever, but they cut her hair. So if you pay attention, she's been growing it out. She didn't even like it.
Yeah, no, that's a great look. That one right there. That
So freaking cute, dude. So cute.
2006, I believe. The greatest. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. The greatest year in the history of mankind.
You know what?
2006.
That's why join me, Chadster, on this midlife crisis I'm having because I'm all about bringing it back, like all of it. Like I brought the lip liner back. I'm all about it. Like I'm ready. I'm ready to go back to like I would say like 2005 to like 2013.
I would love to stay in 05, 06 and never come back.
Oh
So
05 to 13. That's a good chunk of time there.
kind of sucks because that makes me feel old to say that.
Who cares? It
You
doesn't matter.
You had to be there. You had to be there.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. And, I don't care. Like, that's what I'm saying. If you just join me in this midlife crisis, you let go of that and you're just like, wow, I really feel like I'm back in that era. This is awesome.
Hey, I'm there. I'll join you. I'm right there with you. I don't need to join anybody. I'm already there. So
all right, awesome. Well, cheers to that.
all right. So I think we are just about at our time. Anything else you wanted to cover before we hit the road?
I'm sure we can get into this another time when it makes sense, but I just want to say, throw a little, plant some seeds out there. Something that like I want to say is kind of like a moving forward here on TMI. People might, because I know how people are. Ugh. And maybe I'll tell a story on here and then I won't name a name. I'll mute it out or whatever. And then people are like, oh, she's talked about it how many times before? Da, da, da. Fine. Go find those videos and do your detective work. I'm fine with that. But I used to be the type, but when I first started podcasting, I was like, I don't name names. No naming names. It's not about the who, it's about the what. Now, sometimes I'll paint the picture, be like, oh, like last week when I said that I was living at that rock star, like people find it like I think those are cool facts to like bring people into the story because it wasn't just like I was crashing on the couch of like my grandma's. It was like I was over here at this freaking rock star's like guest house. So like it helps with the story, and sometimes people need to know, especially if, like, the person I'm talking about maybe doesn't look so good in the story. I think people need to know that they're, like, the people that they idolize are this way, but I don't have to say their names, you know? So, I used to be that way, and then as this is I gotta come clean here. So, as time went on and there was more saturation with podcasts and YouTube, I thought, well, what's going to be my shtick then? And so then I'm like, well, I'll name names then. I don't care. And so I feel I've been very haphazard and name dropping. And it's never been to be like, oh, I want all this attention, me, Shelly. It's just I wanted clicks because I wanted to make my money on social media. And I felt like if I named some people, named some names, that that would get me just that. But now it's like over the weekend, I had to apologize to somebody. I was like, "You know what? I just wanna let you know anything I've ever said, if it was, like, ever hurt your feelings or, was negative, I'm sorry." And I really meant that because, like, that wasn't my point. And when I've named names, I say haphazardly because I think about the story involved with me and like, whoever the person is. I don't think about, "Oh, yeah, they have family. They have" like, it like outside of the bubble. So I feel like I've lived in the wrestling bubble, entertainment bubble, sometimes when I've been haphazard with name dropping, and it's caused nothing but problems. And then not only that, it's shown me that the viewers, yeah, maybe they like to hear the freaking who, but then, like we talked about before with Vince McMahon, enough time goes by, it doesn't even matter. And then I start, like, from naming people's names, I have problems with all these people now, and I don't blame them, even if they're in the wrong in the situation. So I just want to go ahead and say, I don't care if you guys have heard my stories, you know who I'm talking about. Fine, good. Go watch old videos here on the channel, Shelly Martinez channel. You can find all the answers. If you're going to take the time to decode it, go decode it, my friends. But
That's
for
right.
moving forward, for the most part, I'm not naming anyone's names anymore.
Well, for the sake of the name TMI, when she says a name, we have a new code to take care of that. So tonight it was a hair pull over the mouth.
It was a hair pull. You know, there's a show, you know, Two Broke Girls. Have you heard of it? Or
Yes.
watched it? Okay,
Yes.
well, there's an episode where I think that they're in like a police station or something, and Max, the brunette one, she's trying to talk to Caroline, the blonde one, and she doesn't want the cameras watching them to read her lips, so she goes like this to talk. And I've used it. It works. When you don't want people to read your lips, you just go like this, and it works. No one can tell.
It does. It definitely does.
So
does,
I
but
figured I'd steal that.
But if we want to hear that alarm go off, you know, you gotta preface
I
it's a
know.
TMI moment
It's a
coming.
TMI
So
moment.
we heard it once. You heard the debut earlier in the show, and we will hear that going forward. I want to say this about the first 5 episodes of TMI. Since we debuted, we've crossed over the 9,000 sub marker. We've had over 300 subscribers join us on this journey since. We are close to 12,000 plus views on our videos cumulatively since these videos have debuted. And again, this is as we're recording it, not a week later when it actually posts. So that's going to even grow further from that number even being dropped. But the whole point of this whole spiel is for you to get the word out there about TMI. This has been probably, this is no hyperbole. This is no lie. This is the complete truth. This has been the most fun show that I have worked on in 10 years plus of podcasting. I've had so much fun putting this show together with Shelly. So I implore you to get over to @Shelly Martinez channel on YouTube, watch our videos, share the shorts, comment on them, like them, do whatever you got to do, because anything and everything in the world of TMI will be on the Shelly Martinez channel. These shows are so much fun to go back and watch, even after editing them, going through them, putting chapters in, and I still go back and listen to them because there's something either that I want to hear or I think that is funny. They're worth doubling back and checking out. And I've had somebody that listens to every podcast that I put out say that this is the best podcasting that I have done. So that is a credit right there. So,
well, hello, you're hanging out with Funtime Shelly. Duh.
I mean, hello. What are you going to say? But besides that, if you want to follow me, it's @ChadENB on X and @IB Exclusives on Instagram.
ShellyMartinez.net/links. That's where you find me.
So, Funtime Shelly. We got another one in the books, and we will catch you next time. Episode 6 on the way. Number 5. See you later. For Shelly from Cali, this is the Chadster. We will catch you on the flip side.